What's up, guys? Welcome to a very special episode of Boss Status. I'm Doug Miller, and I'm here with my good friend, Kris Gethin. What's up, Kris?
Howdy, partner. Are they all special guests, or am I really a special
No,
guest?
you are a special guest. I think we need to come up with like a name for this episode. It's like Boss on Boss or something like that. That sounds weird. That sounds weird. Maybe we don't want to call it that. Two bosses, two microphones, something like that. So, Kris, welcome to North Carolina. We did talk about I will do this whole chin wag in a British accent, and you can do it all in a redneck accent. Will that work for you?
Hell yeah.
There you go. So I got a lot of questions for you. So I know a lot of people that will be watching this episode. And by the way, we are sitting in the brand new Mooresville Crusher Coliseum. Epic painting. Shout out to Grizzly Bear Designs right behind us. So that is the venue. So I would be remiss if I didn't say something about that. But I know a lot of the people watching or listening to this podcast know a lot about your origin story and kind of where you come from and kind of how you got into bodybuilding. But I would really like to take a little bit of time, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, to kind of dive back. How you got started in bodybuilding, how you got started, kind of more importantly for this podcast, in the supplement industry, and then bring us up to speed to today and like what's been going on in your life more recently. So is that good?
Sounds good to me, boy.
All right. So how did you get started? Like, how did you get started for your passion for health and fitness, for passion for training people, passion for supplements, passion for biohacking now? So like, where did you start? And I know you came through the bodybuilding.com and you were a part of another supplement brand. And so let's talk about all that.
Sure. So like a lot of things, I fall into these things by accident, like with the biohacking, fell into that by accident, and into bodybuilding as well. So I was racing motocross from the age of like 6 up until like 19, 20. And I just had so many injuries, like from a developing age. And
from crashes?
From crashes,
So
yeah.
you were a terrible rider then.
I was horrendous, mate. I was hanging on by my fingernails half the time. And because I'm riding from a developing age, I didn't have the smoothest style. Just a lot of things were happening. Like it was my spine that like put an end to it. I tore my trap, tore my lat. I had a lot of injuries: broken wrists, broken ankle, torn tendons in the ankles, and it got to a stage where I was just like dealing with so much pain.
At 19?
At 19.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that carried on through a couple of years there, where it just got me depressed in the end. I was dealing with depression because I was dealing with so much pain, and I'd gone to a lot of specialists, and it wasn't until I went through physiotherapy and doing resistance training as part of that physiotherapy that all of a sudden I was getting some alleviation from a lot of the pain that I was dealing with. And then specifically when I started working out my back muscles, and now that helped align my spine, because when I was training for motocross, it was like a lot of time on the motorbike during a week, and mountain biking and running and things like that. Nothing that actually helped with muscle atrophy. And when I got alleviated of that pain, I was like, wow, this feels good. Now I want to start eating healthier, because I never knew what to eat either. And I started studying it. And I went to college for 3 years to study international health and sports therapy. And that's what led me into weight training more, because I thought, okay, I know I'm an all or nothing character. I need to have something to focus on, because after I finished with motocross, I went into downhill mountain biking, thinking that will be a little bit safer and easier and less stress, because I just got to pile down a hill. But then, I was getting injuries there. And then I started getting into drugs, started getting into alcohol.
And this is in like late 90s, or what are we talking about?
No, this would be like early to mid 90s.
Okay.
Mid 90s.
And you're over in the UK?
Yeah,
now.
in Wales.
Okay.
And so then when I studied and got my qualifications, I was like, this is what I want to do. And whilst I was at college, I thought, okay, maybe I'll get into bodybuilding, because I was purchasing bodybuilding magazines before I got into weight training, because that was like a comic book to me. And I'd just look at these images of these people, think that's freaky. But obviously I couldn't follow that lifestyle at that time, because I needed to be as light as possible for the motocross bikes. And that gave me my ticket out of Wales. So I got a job initially, this is in the late 90s, working on cruise liners.
Oh, nice.
And I needed something like that to get me away from my social circle, which was like drugs and alcohol, stuff like that. But then I focused on a bodybuilding show before, after I finished college. And after a year and a half of picking up a weight, I competed in my first show. I had no idea there was such a thing as natural shows or untested shows. Yeah. I just thought everyone was natural. And I competed in that first show.
Wait, people, they're not natural?
They're not natural.
They use other things?
Yeah, apparently so.
Yeah.
So I competed in that show. I got second place. I was definitely the smallest, but I was shredded.
Yeah.
Because I went 0 carbs for like 9 weeks. I had no idea. You know, people usually go through this stage first. I remember I was hallucinating.
Oh, yeah.
I was putting coffee in the fridge, you know, like coffee beans in the fridge. I would like talk to the ATM when it gave me money, like, thank you, appreciate it. You know, I was like out of it. And then, you know, when people were asking me, like, oh, what did you use to get shredded? I was like, well, to lose your water. I was like, well, asparagus and vitamin C, of course. You know, I had no idea. And then after I worked on cruise liners, I only worked on cruise liners for eight months just to get away from that social circle, working on there as a massage therapist as well, because I had those qualifications too. I then ventured to Australia. And that's when I went to a natural show. I watched a natural show. And there's a guy there competing called Mark Costanti. I'd never seen anything like it. And I was thinking, there is no way that guy is natural. He eventually became my training partner. And that's when I realized, okay, there's levels to this shit. And I just learned as much as I could from him.
So you just got up and moved to Australia? That's just the...
Well, after I worked on the cruise liners, I got to know people in Australia. And I thought, okay, I'll go and visit them. And within a day of being there, I got a job. I got a job working on a gym floor. Then I started getting ready for another bodybuilding show. And I used my cardio in the morning just to put trifold leaflets into people's doors saying I offer online, in-person personal training. I can come to your home. We'll meet on the beach. I got one of those total trainers that you'd see Chuck Norris advertise. I got some dumbbells, some pads, some boxing gloves, and started meeting people in parks, beaches, at their home and stuff like that. And that's how I created like an in-person way of personal training. You know, I wasn't then working on the gym floor after about 6 months, I think. And then I saved up all that money over a couple of years' time to purchase a gym. And then I had a gym that offered MMA, you know, and kickboxing and personal training. So it's transformations. I only offered transformations, not personal training. You could either sign up for 12 weeks or 18 weeks, and that's it, basically, because I wanted to use those transformations as my marketing. And then after a while, I realized, you know, I want to reach out to more people. What if I could start writing articles for magazines? That would be awesome. And so I bought Merriam-Webster's book on journalistic writing, taught myself how to write, and started submitting content, and they started getting published.
So where were you published?
I was published in Planet Muscle, a lot of European magazines. Planet Muscle, the Beef magazine, that was a bodybuilding magazine.
I was going to say, who's the audience to that?
Yeah, Muscle News. There was just a lot of European magazines back then. Publications were killing it. And so I was published in all the European magazines. And then I started getting published in Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine in Australia as well. And I got to know the publisher, the editor over there, the editor-in-chief, Gary Phillips, who's from the UK, but living in Australia. We've become best friends since. And then he offered me a gig of actually going to the Arnold and the Olympia this is in year 2000 now, to start getting the content from the shows to put in the Australian version of the magazine. So that's when I started rubbing shoulders with the late Peter McGough, Sean Perrine, Greg Merritt, all the guys from Flex and Muscle and Fitness back in the day. So I thought, you know what? I want to be in the Mecca. I really want to work for the US publications. So I sold the gym and uprooted myself to Venice, California then in 2000. And I just figured, no, this is 2005. And figured,
bro, that just means you're getting old when the 5 years difference is just an easy slip.
I can't remember how old I am, dude. I can't remember last week. I can remember when I was a kid, and that's pretty much it. But so I moved there and just submitted content for about 6 months to Weeder Publications in the US until I got Peter to basically say, okay, come up to Woodland Hills. Let's see if there's something that we can do with you. And that's when I got a job there as, well, I got a writer's contract and a photographer's contract because I failed to mention I taught myself photography as well. And Gary Phillips, he helped me a lot as well. So that's when I was like, okay, this is it.
And all the while, you're still training. Are you competing at this time? Or
Yeah. I'm competing. I was representing Australia then because I started competing in the ANBA and INBA in Australia. I really loved those people. It's like a family. You know, they're really, really cool. So I represented them then at the World Championships, the WNSO World Championships in Canada in 2006. I managed to get second there. And, you know, the more that I was competing towards the end from 2006 then to 2009, I just wasn't getting satisfaction. I'd like fall into a depression after the show because I felt that was my purpose and I'd created too much of an identity associated with that. And I competed in my last show then in 2009. I won that. And I thought, I don't get any more satisfaction out of winning or coming second or whatever. Yeah. So I decided to just hang it up then. And, you know, fast forward, I was with BBCom.
So what year did you start with BBCom?
2007, but I started submitting some content freelance.
So it was a content position essentially then at that point?
Editor-in-chief. So
Is that how you got to Boise?
Yeah. So I interviewed in Boise. There's myself, Isaac Hines, few people that I knew in the industry that were interested in that. So it was Ryan DeLuca's father that that asked if I'd be interested in it. So I flew up to Boise, interviewed for it, got the position. I was like, perfect. So that got me out of LA. You know, I enjoyed LA and I enjoyed working for Weeder Publications and flying around to the New York Pro, Arnold, you know, all the qualifiers. It was just a lot of traveling, but I enjoyed it. You know, I was doing something that I absolutely loved with people that were really, really cool. But with BBCom, obviously, that was really starting to grow and it was overpowering a lot of the publications. They were the main sponsors at a lot of the shows as well. Yep. So I decided, okay, Boise is definitely more me than LA. And when I got that position, that was in 2007, end of 2007. So I moved up there. But prior to that, I had my own magazine as well. I was publishing my own magazine called Caged Muscle. And the reason why it was called that is because I love MMA. I love Muay Thai. I love kickboxing, but I love bodybuilding. So I thought Caged Muscle, let's put it together. Because it's called cage fighting back then. It wasn't called UFC. It was caged fighting. Yeah. And so I combined both of those.
So you're like, I'm going to create a magazine. You just figured out how to get somebody to print this. And
I printed it myself.
You printed it. You laid it all out. And like, well, what was your circulation though?
It wasn't big. It wasn't big. So I offered both an online version and a paper publication as well. So it was sold in like Gold's Gym in Venice. A few news agents would sell it. Metroflex, you know, a lot of the hardcore gyms would sell it. But I never did it to actually make money. I did it because I loved it, you know. And I'd had great columnists in there then. You know, Dorian Yates was writing for the magazine. Lenda Murray was writing for the magazine. Bill Grant was writing for the magazine. I had a few photographers from back in the 70s and the 80s that were submitting pictures for me.
So what year did you publish that?
So that was published from the end of 2006 to about 2008.
So do you stop that pretty much when you started getting heavy into bodybuilding.com?
Yeah, exactly. It was just getting overwhelming. And then my cousin, Adam Gethin, took it over for a couple of years as well after that.
So how at bodybuilding.com, so how long were you there before you then got really into the supplement side of things?
It was probably within the first year because I was sponsored by a couple of supplement companies at that time as well.
Who were your sponsors?
Xenadrine.
Okay.
Remember the Fat Burner? Oh, yeah. ProSource. Remember ProSource? Yeah. They were sponsoring me as well.
They had like a magazine that they put out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'd submit content for them too and their website. I was just writing for everybody as I possibly could outside of the Weeder contract. Yeah. When before and after the Weeder contract, I was submitting articles for everyone because they were paying anywhere between $800 and $1,500 for an article. Oh, wow. And I was like, dude, I'm going to write 3 today. I would just punch them out. I was very, very quick at writing out the content. And I was really enthusiastic about it back then as well. So I'd just work crazy hours.
I mean, that's follow your passion and make sure that that passion is a place where you can also make money and it's a recipe for success. I mean, like that's key. Yeah. So how did you get a part of, how did you start Caged Muscle, right? Because people know Caged, and that's where you were prior, and before it was Caged Muscle. So how did you start Caged, or what was your involvement in that, and how did that brand come about?
Sure. So, over time when I was doing video trainers on BBCom and stuff, I started testing some supplements, some myself, because I thought, okay, now I'm that kind of quote unquote authoritative figure. Because now I'm in front of the camera. I was never comfortable in front of the camera. I've become comfortable now because thankfully Ryan DeLuca from BBCom kind of forced me in front. He's like, okay, there's only 30 of us in the office here. You're the only one that's competing. Let's do a video series every day so that person can follow you up to the stage or whatever it may be, and they can transform themselves. So reluctantly, I did it. I thank him for it now. And I also had a Body Space account. Remember the Body Space account? So my Body Space account was called Caged Muscle and whatnot. So people used to just call me Caged Muscle. And during that time, I was working. So towards the end of me working at BBCom, Michael McLean, who came in as a COO, and then Brian Rand, who was the formulator there, all left. They left BBCom after a while. And we got talking about.
So he was a formulator at Bodybuilding for their house brands,
yes,
or what? Yep.
Exactly, for their house brands. And he formulated the gym supplement line in the beginning because that was a BBCom brand as well. And we just got talking. They approached me. And
was the gym before or after?
Gym was before.
Before?
Gym was before. And they just asked me if I'd be interested in creating a brand. Is that something that I'm interested in? I was like, yeah, possibly, but this is the wish list. I wanted fermented ingredients. I wanted natural this, that, blah, blah, blah. And, so that was basically a seal done. And that's how we created Caged Muscle, because none of us were associated with BBCom then at that time. We'd all left.
So what year was this?
This was 2014. 2013 to 2014, between those timelines.
But was Caged Muscle exclusive to bodybuilding.com?
It was for the first year because of our relationships with BBCom.
So you guys all left on good notes.
Oh, then. Yeah. We all left on good, like I wasn't in Boise then. I'd left Boise. I'd moved to India. I was working there with a lot of celebrities.
We got to come back to that too. Yeah. Like I need to figure out how you get to India. So yeah.
So because I was there for a lot of time, I was, and I was very, very good friends with Ryan, and I was like, I don't think I can offer you exactly what you need at this stage. So, I need to be in Boise in order to facilitate that position. And so then, we started, of course, and we'd all finished with BBCom on very, very good terms. But Ryan DeLuca was now not at BBCom. And once Ryan left, I was like, there's no reason to do anything other than be a vendor.
So there was 3 founders of Caged Muscle? Is that essentially
Yes, exactly.
And what were like the roles? You were the face of the company, but like I'm sure you had say in the products. Yeah. So like how did all that work?
So I'd have a wish list of certain ingredients that I wanted in the products. I didn't know how well they could combine with each other or formulate with each other, if they'd counteract with each other. I would just give my wish list. I'd like this, I'd like this, I'd like this. I'd like the fermented ingredients, I like the natural ingredients, but it needs to be efficaciously dosed in this. And then I would just try all of these products basically in the trenches. So I would just, try these products out if they felt good, if there was any feedback. Like we'd go through a lot of samples, to get it right. And that's how it kind of worked.
All right. So before we're going to put a little pin in Caged Muscle. So we're at Caged Muscle now, but I got to figure out, because, we've talked for quite some time, over the years, and, every time I'm talking to you, you're like, I'm in India right now, mate. And I'm just like, well, what the hell are you doing in India? Like, how'd you get there? So like, how did you get hooked up in India? Because from all I see is like you are the trainer of the stars in India. You're training like the Indian Tom Cruise. I mean, that is no disrespect to your clients over there, but like you're training all these big time stars. Like how did that happen? And like how India? Like what is your connection there? Because you have gyms there. You all have 11 or 12 gyms in India. Correct. So how is that like your second home?
Okay, so I released a book. I published a book through Simon & Schuster in 2010, and I kind of collabed with bodybuilding.com. I kind of wrote it for bodybuilding.com, and it was all about how we had observed, it's like observational studies on body space. What was the tipping point that allowed their transformations go from good to great? And a lot of it came from the transparency of the group, the accountability of the group, blah, blah, blah. So we published a book on this, and it's called Body by Design. I was asked as part of like the book tour to go to India and do a book release there and a signing and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of people in India knew me there from bodybuilding.com because we had equal amount of traffic coming from India as we did from the US. The conversion wasn't there, but the traffic was. So I had a lot of recognition there. So when I went there, my book ended up in the hands of one of the celebrities over there, Hrithik Roshan, from Jag Chima, as we know. So Jag was, he was the person that was responsible for getting me there at this event. And he happened to give one of these copies of the book to a star there who at the time was going through a lot of injuries. He'd like ruptured a disc, slipped a disc in his back. He was binge eating, but now he has to play a role where he's a superhero. And this is his second movie within this trilogy. So he asked if I would get him in shape, and I, had a consultation with him to see this guy was serious. He was pretty smart, and decided, okay, we'll transform then over a 12-week period. We managed to do it in 9 weeks. But when that transformation came out, it was literally front page news. It was all over TV. It was just everywhere, and it just went nuts from there.
So did you like live with him, train with him? Like, well, how did that work?
I didn't live with him. No, I lived very close to him.
Well, like that's what I mean. Like you were there, hands on with him every day.
Every day for 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Every day for 12 weeks. But what happened prior to this is that I got kicked out of the US. I got kicked out of the US because my immigration lawyer had not filed for my extension when I was here, unbeknownst to me. It was only when BBCom were asking questions, the lawyers at BBCom saying, there's something dodgy going on with this guy. He's not providing us with all the documentation that we need for your employment. So when they started doing some investigation on him, they realized that he had not filed for my extension. So I literally had a couple of weeks to get out of the country. It was like straight after the Olympia. And, it happened. I heard about it before the Olympia, but I thought, no, I've dedicated myself.
And what year is this?
This is 2011, I think it was.
So this is before the cage muscle, yeah.
Yeah, 2011. And they said, literally, you have a couple of weeks to get out. And this was the week leading into the Olympia, but I had commitments, and I was like, well, I should follow through with these commitments because I'm going to be back in the country within a couple of weeks. This will be easy. It's not my fault. And I had a lot of waiver documentation to show the immigration in London to say, look, this isn't my fault. But I quickly realized that the people at the immigration have more power than the president or the prime minister. And if they're in a good mood, they'll let you in. If they're not in a good mood, they're not going to let you in. So I had time here where I was kind of floating, and I thought, okay, I'll go to India and I'll entertain this. It turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
And since then, I started flying in other trainers from the UK, from the US, Neil Hill being one of them, to start facilitating a lot of these celebrities that wanted me to train them. But I'm only one person. I couldn't facilitate all this. So myself and Jag started flying in a lot of other trainers from around the world.
So when did you start opening gyms in India?
That was 2015, so a couple of years following. Because we're traveling around a lot, I could see a lot of the trainers were not treated as professionals. They were basically doing what the clients were telling them to do. A lot of them were, like on the gym floor, they just weren't enthusiastic about what they were doing. It just wasn't considered like a profession, really. It's like a side hustle.
So you have a lot of personal training going on at your gyms.
Yeah, a lot. And we call them academies internally over gyms because we're constantly wanting to train people, not only the staff but the front desk staff, talking about, the first initial, thing that people are going to see is a front desk. So they need to be clean. They need to be groomed. They need to have a smile on their face, even if they're having a shitty day. And every time that we go around to these gyms, a couple of times a year, we're constantly educating not only the trainers, but showing recognition. You know, we appreciate them. They're doing a great job, and we do whatever we can within the communities that we've built as well of all the gyms that we uphold that.
All right, so let's jump back now to your supplement time at Cage Muscle. So you're at Cage Muscle. It's a bodybuilding.com exclusive. I mean, how long was it that, and like how did that brand grow? Was that successful right out the gate, or what?
It's pretty successful. We had that exclusivity with BBCom. They gave it a lot of front page placement. Yeah. And then during that 1 year exclusivity, it was kind of good because now everybody wanted a part of it. So the floodgates kind of opened after that first year, because then we started giving it to the vitamin shops and the GNCs and the Europas. And it got quite a lot of recognition pretty quick, because it was like one of the first brands that was naturally flavored, naturally colored, fermented ingredients. You know, I was shaking a tree personally by telling people, look, this is what's in your product, this is what's in us, without, you know, calling out any brands.
So let's get into it now, because you left Caged. It broke the internet. Like a lot of people, were diehard people consuming Caged because of Kris Gethin. And then you say, peace, I'm out. I guess this was about a year ago, right? Why was that decision? I mean, I don't know if you've even spoken publicly about this. I mean, I know I haven't heard much about it, but like, why? I know people want to know, right? And I've seen it on your socials, like, why did you leave? Why did you leave? And maybe you respond to them privately, or maybe, so like, I guess this is the opportunity to publicly, like, what, I would love to know why specifically you left and why you decided to make a change when it was a brand that you founded. Like, I know it would be really hard for me to step away from Core, a baby that I started, 20 years ago, right? Like, it must have gotten a little bit weird or something for a founder to want to step away.
Yeah. So it didn't happen overnight. Like, there was probably 2 years there, 2 years that I was just really, really unhappy. Like, to the extent that it was definitely affecting my mental state. I just couldn't sleep at night.
So you leave Caged, and it's been a year now since you've been gone, and I know you love this space. So let's talk publicly for the first time about what's next for you.
Well, you know.
I know. I know. This is a setup. We want to hear from the other boss.
Yeah. So as you know, we got talking. We both come from a very kind of hardcore but natural background of training, and that's what I absolutely love. And, I spoke to a few people about you, like Julian Smith and whatnot, and everybody had really, really good things to say about you. And I think it's very, very important when you do go into a business with somebody, more than anything, you have to vibe with that person. You have to have good vibration and know that that person has very, very good intentions. And, from meeting you as well, I was like, this guy's got it. This guy has very, very good intentions.
Say more. Say what else, Kris?
Yeah.
What else, Kris?
And I kind of vibed. And, I remember speaking to you about the possibility of creating another brand. And, when I told you what I would like to do, and you was like full on board with that, I was like, okay, well, maybe we should do something together here.
Yeah. So from my perspective, and people listening to this podcast, which would be on my platform, know that, I love supplements, and it's all about quality, but it's also more importantly about the people that I'm doing this with. And I'm not going to lie to you, over the past probably 3 years, there has been, I would probably say 6 to 8 different people in this space, influencers and
pro bodybuilders
and other brand owners, very successful brand owners that have come to me and who have said, hey, Doug, let's do a brand. And they were enticing. I think some of them could have been successful, but it just didn't seem right? Like there was nothing super special about the brand. I didn't know exactly what the story of the brand was. I didn't know exactly how that brand would be set apart. I think, but when you and I first talked and you said exactly what you wanted, I'm like, that's it. I felt very much like, again, the listeners of this podcast know that our core values are super important to us. I felt like our core values aligned. As you would say, we were vibing, or I guess our vibrations were in tune. I don't know what the heck you would say. But it just felt right. And honestly, I think from a business perspective, like I needed to look at it as like, well, I wouldn't start a brand that will be a perfect direct competitor of our current brand. Like our current 3 brands, Core, Arms Race, America, are very 3 distinct personalities, and they're all a little bit of piece of my personality. Like I have a little, that's what makes it so fun. It's like a little bit of piece of my personality, but they're so different. Yes, we might take our meetings in the same rooms, but like they're so different. And then this brand and what you wanted to do, when Kris first came to me, it was like all about the natural sweeteners. And my first response was like, oh, I fucking hate stevia. I mean, that was legitimate, but I also felt like it was a giant challenge, right? Because I don't know about you. I mean, you do consume a lot of naturally sweetened products. I know for me, there is no good experience on the market or no enjoyable experience that I would keep going back to. And so I felt like that was the great challenge for this brand and another enticing reason why it made sense for us to join up. So this is the first time, I guess, publicly on a podcast that we've created a supplement company. Mm-hmm. It's called Unmatched. And this brand is going to be amazing. Like I already can tell it's going to be amazing. And I think, from a skeptic on the natural sweeteners, like, so like, let's just say it how it is. Like Caged will spend the money because it is not cheap. We know it's not cheap to use natural stevia and monk fruit and other types of natural sweeteners. It's not cheap at all. And it's very bitter and it doesn't taste that good. They use a lot of stevia in their product. But then if you look at the last ingredient, it says sucralose, which to me always blew my mind. I mean, their product stays good. I mean, but it kind of defeats the purpose. Why even spend the money on the stevia to put in there if you're going to put the sucralose in there? So I think it's really cool that you stuck to your guns and have been like, no, we got to do this right. And so I think people are going to be blown away by this. And you might even have a convert who will use naturally sweetened products on a regular basis. I mean, it's been phenomenal.
Yeah. So like I remember, obviously coming out here and meeting the team, and I really enjoyed the dynamic here. Even though you've got like a huge HQ, everybody was like huddled in a one room working together like a family. And I was like, really love this atmosphere. And we obviously did a sample of certain products that were all naturally sweetened. And we were far off. And, of course, I've taken a lot of products that are naturally sweetened, but I'm the kind of person, I'm kind of hardcore from the old school days of having the really chalky tasting products. But I was like, you know what, I'll drink it anyway. I just know that no one else is going to buy it. It's definitely not going to buy it. But then, obviously, we went through different renditions, different formulations, different sweeteners. And of course, they just got better and better and better over time. It took a long time.
I mean, there's been a lot of work in this. And, Dave has been, got to give a shout out to Dave.
For sure, 100%.
He has been grinding. He's, our R&D for the team. And what we have come up with in a group effort as this combination has not been done on the market. And the fact that we are able to take naturally sweetened, colored, and flavored products and make them taste the way they are, I think that alone is a huge selling point. But in addition to that, we're going to be coming out with a significant brand of products. This isn't just like a pre-workout like everyone does. And the uniqueness and the innovation in this has been something that, Kris is a big driver of this. I told Kris in the beginning, I was like, dude, this isn't, we are co-owners, but like, this is your brand. You need to drive what you want in this product because at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to be on the road selling it on a regular basis, right? So that is one thing that was really important to me. So now you get to do it all over again.
Yeah.
Final dance, baby. Here we go. Because this is your last supplement company. I promise you. I promise you that. You heard it here. So what are you most excited about for this brand, and what can people who are watching or listening to this, what can you tell them they can expect from this brand?
Yeah,
I mean, I know what they can expect. It's awesome, but
well, you can give your 2 cents as well. Like, I'm not going to get into the weeds of the actual ingredients and stuff like that.
We'll do that in another podcast.
I don't know when this is going to come out.
Yeah.
But we, as you know, we have some innovative ingredients in here. There's no doubt about it. Some of them, we were speaking to somebody in Europe today about one of the ingredient suppliers that are coming to us. What I'm really excited about, some of these ingredients that are not used in formulations yet in the world, and we've put them together and we've tested them. We actually take these products. The formulator trains. We trained today. We've tested these products rigorously, but they're all extremely healthy. Like you said, we've spent so much time tasting these as well, but just putting them through the ringer and just feeling the effects and merging that health sector with the sports performance sector. We've really done that this time, really done it. There's no doubt about it. One of our products actually in the name is kind of a longevity product that we've put together that no one has done in this industry. And I just cannot wait to reveal that for people to not only try it, but taste it along with that, knowing that, we have products that are naturally sourced, without giving away too much, which is very, very difficult at this stage.
Well, I will say we have a lot of products dropping, and we use a total of 0 milligrams of caffeine in our products right now at the moment, which is going to blow some people's minds.
Yeah.
Like, just that statement alone is going to be people. I think you're going to have some people disappointed, but once they try what we're doing.
Yeah, because they'll still get a stimulating effect. Yep. There's no doubt about it, but it's a stimulation product that no one's using yet, really.
So, part of this was, your when we talked about it was the whole natural side of things, and, also this kind of like this biohacking side of you. So, like, how did you, because you are like the biohacking bodybuilder. Those two things don't usually go hand in hand. Being a bodybuilder can sometimes be very deleterious on, longevity. And then you have the biohacking side of you and all the things that your routines that you like to do. How did you get into that? And I think that, because that's another big portion of this brand that is going to be there.
Yeah. So luckily, over the past 4 or 5 years, I've been speaking at a lot of biohacking and anti-aging events. So I've been able to learn a lot from a lot of my peers in that industry. And that really attracts me. It really stimulates me. But it was in 2015, I got diagnosed with mold toxicity because I just wasn't sleeping. I wasn't a good person to be around at all. I was quite angry.
That was because you were at Cage Muscle.
Yeah, part of it was contributing. It's probably that's what tipped me over the edge, mate. But when I found out about this mold toxicity, went to this clinic in Oldsmar, Florida, and that's when I, was training with Ben Pekulski for about 6 weeks. That's when I really started going down that rabbit hole and finding out, okay, antibiotics in foods can have this effect. There's mold in certain grains that can have this effect, blah, blah, blah. And this is what a lot of these artificial color sweeteners and flavors can possibly do to you. And, I started really focusing then on my biological age, getting my biological age tested and realizing that it was actually further ahead than my chronological age. So then I really went down a rabbit hole on how I can reverse this. And luckily, I've been able to reverse it every 6 months that I get this
Kris
test.
is really 14 years old right now.
That's the goal, baby. That's the goal. So, 26 is my most recent result that I've got, even though I'm 50 this year.
I think the other really cool thing about this brand, and this is the same thing that, like, why it's really fun to work with, like, Julian too, is that when I was working with Julian, I said, like, this brand needs to be vertically integrated with Julian Smith, right? From everything about the brand, right? Like, that's what makes sense. But the brand also has to be so good that if Julian Smith, or in this case, Kris Gethin, gets hit by a bus, the brand is so good and so strong and has such a strong ethos behind it that it'll stand on its own. And I think we've done a great job so far in doing that with this. And I think people are going to be really impressed at how this brand is you. Like, so anybody who's a Kris Gethin fan, that one female fan of yours out there, she'll love it too. She'll love it too. But yeah, I mean, the brand is going to be so strong and so just integrated from top to bottom, vertically integrated in from the marketing to the packaging to everything that we do to the content that we put out. I think people are going to be blown away by this.
Yeah, like we had the opportunity, obviously, to come out with a lot more products, but we decided to spend so much more time and effort on the first batch of products, which is a small amount, but with the SKUs and the flavors, there's quite a few. But I think the quality over quantity will speak for itself, and then with that demand, which I'm pretty sure, without sounding arrogant, that will come from it, then we'll be able to expand upon that. But of course, I want to continue to reverse my biological age. I want to continue to bodybuild, but in a healthy way. And half of the supplements out there are just not part of my ethos, but this one definitely is.
Yeah. I mean, so like we've made decisions in this brand that for some people might not matter, but for Kris and a lot of his consumers will matter a great deal. Like your average person might not know the difference between a grass-fed whey isolate and a regular whey isolate, but you do. And a lot of the consumers out there, there is that market that does. And so I think it's cool to bring something just that is so, I guess it's very authentic to you and your ethos. And I think people are going to be blown away by it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if people are interested in investing in their health and longevity, but they want to improve their performance, then this is the brand. There's nothing else out there that will match this. And again, that's not arrogance.
Bro, it's unmatched.
It's unmatched, baby.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add? I mean, we've been going probably about, 50 minutes, an hour here, so we probably should wrap this up. I know we're going to be doing more podcasts in the future, but is there anything else you want to get off your chest, add to the content that is here today? Anything else?
No, not really, other than, like I said, I'm really excited what we're going to bring to the table here, because nobody on the planet has done this. And is it going to be the cheapest brand out there? No, but it's going to be affordable, and we're going to provide more value, not just with the supplement line, but everything that we've been building and talking about in addition than what the consumer is going to pay for.
Right on, 100%. All right, guys, you heard it here first. Unmatched is coming May 2024. Until next time, keep crushing it.
Boom.